And he's talking about the streaming aspect and the YouTube, and he's launched his own Stephen A. Smith show. He's certainly getting into that. 600,000 subscribers there. And a lot of his content is going there. We play a lot of content from the Stephen A. Smith show, more so than First Take on ESPN. And there's no coincidence that what Pat McAfee did and what he called out management, top execs, Norby Williamson at ESPN, there's no question that Stephen A. can do the exact same thing. And everyone knows now you're not going to be punished at the very top of the media hierarchy at ESPN. Chad, the line of I'm black, he's white. Well, now from that angle, he's looking at the contract extension. He wants to be the highest paid at ESPN. He's made no secret about that, even when he joined Clay Travis on Clay's show. And this is his brand. He's getting more discussion by bringing up Pat McAfee, which by and large he was complimenting him.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows that going down the McAfee lane is going to pit him versus ESPN as well. And that's exactly what he's doing because, again, his contract's coming up. He wants to do less. He wants to be paid more. And not just more, he wants to be the highest paid. And the new version of Stephen A. is Pat McAfee. It's discussed as being polished. By and large, he is. But as he was making the name of Stephen A. Smith, after being the columnist and working in print and working his way up and doing great things, doing exactly that, he was also known for being loud and obnoxious on First Take. Was he not?
Oh, of course.
And that's exactly what McAfee show's all about. Of course.
Now, maybe I have a little bit of different perspective on this. First off, you're going to get clipped by shows like ours and others anytime you play the race card. Okay,
yes.
So, and Stephen A. Smith is a smart guy and understands this and knows it. So I think he knows. I think he's probably thanking us and OutKick and his buddy Clay Travis, who they've appeared on each other's podcast talking about these things, because he brought up the fact that McAfee's white, I'm black, I've got to be more political, or maybe he doesn't have to be as political as I do in order to get the job done. Here's the difference with this, and I took this a different way as to what Stephen A. Smith is saying. I'd love to get Stephen A. Smith on the show, and I can ask him what he meant by it, because he was very complimentary of McAfee. And this is where I buy what Stephen A. Smith is saying. Not because black and white, but because of where they were when each of them started. Stephen A. Smith comes from a writing background originally. He had to prove himself and leap off the screen as a television personality. If Stephen A. Smith in his first year at ESPN went on air and lit a torch to everyone at the company that's at the executive level and started calling out ESPN executives by name, I don't think it would have gone over well. Now, if Stephen A. Smith today decided to do that because of his power, he could probably get away with it. Had he done it 4 or 5 years into his ESPN tenure, and he claimed that it's going to be racist if they do anything to me, he probably would have gotten away with it, because we've seen that card played a number of times too. I didn't take this, though, as, oh, well, he's white, so he got where he is because he's white, and I'm black, and I got to work harder and do these things. I took it, Hutton, as Pat McAfee came into a situation where he was already a superstar digitally. He had already made his following. He had done it on his own. He didn't necessarily need ESPN when he came to ESPN. Stephen A. Smith needed ESPN to make him a star, and they did. And he did it for himself also. I'm not denying his talent and what he did for ESPN. He's done a lot. But point being, McAfee kind of comes in with this, I don't give a bleep. I don't care. I've already made a ton of money. I can go sign a deal with someone else and make a lot of money. We've got a lot of people watching online already. I don't really need ESPN. So I'm an honest guy, and if I feel like Norby Williamson is effing with our show because he didn't like us and didn't want to hire us, I'm going to call him out by name. Because who cares? What's the worst that can happen? They're going to try to fire me. They're going to kick me off of game day. I'm the most fascinating thing on game day right now for ESPN. I think he just has a I don't give a bleep attitude when he came in, and that's different from Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith notes that he's talented, notes that he really likes him, likes his honesty, But yeah, Stephen A. Smith, when he got to ESPN, had to play a different political game. He had to get in good with his bosses. He had to get the bosses on his side. He had to play politics a lot more than McAfee. I don't think that's a black-white thing as much as a station in career thing, as both of them arrived at ESPN at different points in their career.
Well, it used to be a right-left thing. Just ask Sage Steele.
That's true.
Versus Jalen Rose.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's absolutely accurate.
Especially with John Skipper when he was in charge.
Sure.
There were big issues there.
And look at the behind-the-scenes payments being made. Coming to some agreement in the court system. Chad, you mentioned they needed ESPN. Stephen A. coming. Now ESPN needs both of them. And the action or the lack thereof in response to that whole saga with McAfee and Williamson and execs and the college football playoff and all that, the fact that they did nothing but just say that we're going to keep everything in-house tells you how much they need Pat McAfee. It also will tell you how much they need Stephen A. when they acquiesce to what he's going to ask for. I don't think there's any question he's going to end up being the highest paid.
Yeah, they're two of the most powerful talents. Stephen A. I'd argue first, McAfee probably behind him, but two of the most powerful talents currently at ESPN. And I'd also argue that I don't know if ratings truly matter for Pat McAfee, because ratings have not been good of his show on linear TV.
Yes.
And Stephen A. Smith can tout the fact that I'm giving you a huge audience when I sign off on First Take. And you take that audience and it diminishes big time. Diminishes more than the Sports Center that aired after before you took over as Bill Simmons. Now that they're feuding, Bill Simmons and Pat McAfee. Bill Simmons, the sports guy, pointed out that the Sports Center was doing better with television ratings. But, Hutton, I don't think ultimately that Pat McAfee is being judged by TV ratings other than College Game Day when he appears on that. This was a move to bolster ESPN digitally and what they do with that part of their company, because Pat McAfee brought such a digital presence already when he came over to ESPN.
So Stephen A. now on YouTube, 567,000 subscribers. And here is the Stephen A. Smith Show description. Again, not on ESPN. Stephen A. Smith Show, Smith gives you his renowned point of view, breaking barriers beyond the world of sports and tackling issues across entertainment, pop culture, society, business, and politics. 3 times a week, you'll hear his live, unfiltered opinions on the day's biggest headlines, as well as straight-shooting interviews with top celebrities, game changers, and thought leaders across society. That's the next level for him, and you better believe ESPN wants to tap into that because they're doing that with Pat McAfee.
Well, and you could take that description and put it underneath Pat McAfee and just replace Stephen A. Smith with Pat McAfee, and that's kind of what Pat McAfee's show is doing, with a little bit more of a mix of camaraderie. Because it's kind of just a group of dudes talking about everything.
But that goes back to what Stephen A. just said about the difference between the two, right? But here, he's riffing on whatever he wants to discuss. And on First Take, it's kind of the same vibe where he's got someone across the table from him, and it's more of a point-counterpoint, right?
Yeah.
And this is where think about how often we've discussed him and played clips from Stephen A., and is it from First Take or is it from this YouTube show?
It's from YouTube.
And that's on purpose.
Yeah.
He's saying a lot more there.
I also think that the goals of each guy are a little bit different. And I say that knowing that Pat McAfee is a natural showman. Like, he wants to be the show. He wants to be the center of attention. And he's a great entertainer when it comes to that. But I do believe that Pat McAfee wants the show to be the star. When he's doing the Pat McAfee show, he does want to highlight his supporting cast. He wants guests on. He wants the guests to be very good. He's a very good distributor. They play well off of each other. Him and his crew of guys, mixed with the guests they bring in, mixed with celebrity guests. Stephen A. Smith very much wants to be the star. He is the star. He wants to be the star. He wants that to be about him. I would compare him to Clay Travis in that way. Right? That description you just read about YouTube, I mean, Clay could probably say Stephen A. Smith is ripping him off, because there are some words there that when Clay founded OutKick would have been the same description of OutKick, right? In what they're trying to accomplish. But they're two superstar media members that are very good about just being themselves on camera and on mic, and they want it to be about them. I don't think Clay's is interested in interviewing other guests or interviewing people as much as he is getting his opinion out there. I think Stephen A. Smith is the same way. I think McAfee's a mix of all that. He wants his buddies to be involved. He wants the show to be the star. He wants to interview people. The dude's also a professional wrestling background guy. Like, he knows how to be the show and be the center of attention.
Yeah, but think about Stephen A. from this angle. Kenny Smith. We've been discussing him from the weekend with Reggie Miller. It was Stephen A. and Kenny Smith.
Yeah.
So I mean and that didn't happen on TNT.
Right. No, he did a good job with that. And
but
I think
I'm saying, like, he knows his brand, and it's not just First Take. And the timing of this is also not coincidental.
Well, the point is, he understands that when he's on ESPN, it is Sports Take Stephen A. Smith, but there's an opportunity to expand to other markets. And that's not different from Clay. That's not different from a lot of people. Pat McAfee does some pop culture stuff, but it's mainly about sports on his show all the time. I think Stephen A. Smith sees an opportunity here for his personality to cross over into other genres.
And what's that value to ESPN? You know what I mean?
I would say it's large, but I think in an evolving ecosphere of sports,
it's the McAfee
we're going to get
model.
into this about competition. Also, and how competition raises a lot of different stakes and makes everything better. I mean, I think when Pat McAfee goes out and says Norby Williamson is a rat on his show, that is also Pat McAfee saying, fire me, fools, if you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
You told me I could be myself. This is me. I'm being me. And if you're going to F with me, I'm going to call it out on my show, and it's going to be a story. And if you don't like it, I'll go cut another deal with FanDuel. And I'll make millions doing that, right? I mean, that's kind of his mentality. I think Stephen A. Smith.
And he owns his YouTube platform.
I mean, look, ESPN helped Stephen A. Smith a lot in his platform, but there may come a day where Stephen A. Smith isn't going to get what he wants from ESPN, and he decides, I'll make a go of it elsewhere. I'll do something different if the brand isn't right for him.